Hi, everyone. More. Hi, everyone. Really excited to be here. Really like it here in Goa. And I prepared something special for you today with the slides, a kind of different format. Hope you will like it. And today I will talk about authentication best practices in GraphQL, but not only in GraphQL, but authentication best practices in general. So a little bit about myself. This is my fancy logo, which is basically just copy-paste from VS Code, so don't judge. I'm developer advocate at Hasura. I'm also Google developer expert, author, consultant, and I do web, mobile, VR, AR, IoT, AI recently, and probably if I add blockchain in the future, there will be like top of buzzwords, right? So I like to say I build cyberpunk future in a good way. And I want to start this talk with the sort of a journey to space to talk about authentication. So we're here in the spaceship, and let's talk about different ways we can authenticate. We can use username and password. But would you leap out of your spaceship into the void without thinking of your security? Probably won't, right? Would you use session tokens? Well, you might use session tokens. Actually, it's a really good idea for authentication, but we are working with distributed systems, right? We're using microservices. We want to scale everything, and not necessarily we can keep one centralized token database. So we see more and more companies go into JWT solution. And today I want to explain all the intricacies of JWT, what it is, how it's used, and let's be honest, around 80% of companies out there use it wrong. And we'll see why. So let's go into our journey into the new dimension of JWT authentication. And obviously, I need to log in. And I will log in and teleport to the new dimension. So we'll talk about what JWT is and how it is used. We will talk about login, logout, and we'll talk about a concept called refresh tokens. So let's jump in and talk what is JWT. So JWT is a token which is used for the purposes of auth, and it has some kind of JSON payload that is not encrypted. And this is a misconception. Lots of people think JWT's tokens are encrypted. No, they are not. They are, you can decrypt it on the client. They are just base 64. And the token can be used when talking to API. Now, the secure part of JWT token is the token is verified by the backend, and it's valid. It's valid until it's expired. So can client impersonate the user? Well, probably yes, but verification on the backend kind of prevents that. But what happens if JWT is stolen? Can it be used forever? Well, if you implement your backend incorrectly and you don't have expiry for JWT, yes, it will be available all the time, because you don't store, you generate it on the backend, but you don't store it in centralized token database, opposing all the session tokens examples. So if you go to jwt.io, you will see something like this. So on the left side, you can see a token, and lots of people think it's encrypted. Again, it's not. On the right side, you will see how token is decoded. And as you can see, it consists of three parts. The first part is a header that defines the algorithm that will be used for encoding or decoding. The second part is a payload, which consists of data that you want to pass. So don't pass sensitive data in your JWT payloads. And the third one is the signature, that is, there are different algorithms, there are different types of signatures. There are some that use just a secret keyword, some that use private key. There are different algorithms. You can browse through JWT.io and read more about that. Now, the diagram of what's going on, it looks like that. And let me walk you through this. So we have our app, right? And we send a login request. On the server, the token is serialized to the base64 encode header and payload. And you sign using the algorithm and the payload claim. Now what happens, the microservice, like the whole business logic and everything here, the verification happens here. You get the claims data, do business logic, verify, and go back to an app. So that's how it can be done. But let's look further at login. And we have the different dimension here of login, logout. Let's jump inside. So how does it look like? Let's strip it down to smaller parts and look at the like granularly. So login request, generate JWT token to get back to an app. What lots of companies doing wrong? Where do you store JWT? If you Google the answer, you will see local storage, and it's wrong. Because local storage is accessible, XSS attacks can just take your JWT from the local storage, use it, impersonate user, and yeah, sure, with verification it's harder, but it's possible to get the token. So you store token in memory. Don't store it in cookies. You can say, okay, I will store it in an HTTP-only cookie. But then there is cross-site request forgery, which you can also look further into it. So there are different security considerations when storing JWT. So the only way to store it secure is to store it in memory. So in a nutshell, the login will look like that. You will have the username and password, and in response, you will get this JWT token, right? Now, I already told you, never store it in cookies, local storage. You store it in memory, just like that. Well, a little bit more complicated than that, but you store both JWT and you store the expiry. Now, what happens if there is no token? You redirect to login. So as simple as that. Now, what happens in the app itself when you do post requests to your GraphQL endpoint? You check if this token is in memory. And if it's no, well, we're already seeing that, you redirect to login screen. If it's there, you simply pass it in header. So far, everything is good, right? Everything is passed to my GraphQL client. I define my Apollo client, passing the authorization bearer token that I got. So far, everything is good, everything is working. What about errors? What if I have network error and JWT is invalid? It has its expiry date, right? So we just use on error from Apollo link error, and it just works. Now, what about logout? Logging out is a little bit more complicated, and to be honest, to log out, like a simple logout, is just deleting your JWT from memory, because we dealt with errors, right? What will happen will be request to GraphQL server, token is expired, is not there, we'll redirect to login. But there is another request you see here, the logout request. And you see the blacklisted token list and verification and verified not blacklisted. So what is that? Typically, you have 15 minutes, this is the best practice, 15 minutes of expiry for your JWT token. But sometimes in really like secure apps, you want to keep it, even when you log out, you want to delete this token completely. Now, token is not stored anywhere. So the only possible way to blacklist this token is to keep it in some kind of database for these 15 minutes or the rest till its expiry date. Now you can argue on that and saying that you just said JWT doesn't need centralized token database. Yeah, that's right, it doesn't need. Blacklisting does need something like that, so it's a trade-off. So think something like that. If you log out, your token will be still valid for the difference between the logout and the end of expiry date. So if you want to limit that, yeah, do blacklisting and do blacklist database, something like that. Now, we have, and you probably already spotted several problems with that. We store token in memory, right? So there are several questions that raise. First, user will be logged out every 15 minutes, right? We don't want that. We want user to stay in our app. So what happens if we are in banking systems? There we usually show user you about to log out. Please, like, do you want to continue the session? Sometimes some systems doesn't need that. So they use different method that we will talk about. But there is another problem, more dominant one. What if I open another tab? Just simple thing like opening another tab basically will mean I'm starting my app without token in memory. So what will happen in our app? Redirect to login. Do I want to log in every single time in different tab? No, I don't, right? So how do we solve this? And we solve this with something that is called refresh token. Now we can say, oh, come on, session tokens, JWT, now refresh tokens, like how do I supposed to know all of this stuff? And yeah, I have more diagrams for you, so no worries. Now this diagram, in this diagram, that's what's going on. The login request executes login request to login endpoint and generates JWT token and refresh token. Now refresh token is stored in database. And refresh token has expiry date of something like a month. Now refresh token is returned back to the client, but it's not returned to the client via response. It's returned to the client using set cookie, and we'll see later on as HTTP only. Now JWT is stored in memory, as you can see here, and we start countdown. We start countdown to something that is called silent refresh. So whenever you use 15 minutes pass, we check our JWT if it's about to expire. We execute another request to get to a different endpoint to get refresh token. And this refresh token will get us JWT back. So how does it look like? We call refresh token. Refresh token is passed in the cookie. Now, when I use set HTTP only cookie, this cookie is not accessible in JavaScript on the browser. So cookie is sent back from the server to the client. It's secure for cross-site scripting attacks, but it's sent back to the refresh token endpoint whenever you want to refresh your JWT. And refresh token does exactly that. It verifies refresh token in the database, and it generates JWT. Now, what can happen? You will have two different JWTs in two different tabs. Is this fine? Yeah, actually it is, because they have different expiry. They have different countdown, so that's perfectly fine. And setting cookie work across all browser tabs. So our refresh token is refreshed again as well. Now the important part about refresh token, when it's stored, when you store it in database and when you do this verification, you actually delete the old one. So you regenerate both the JWT and refresh token. So it means even if which is almost not possible. But even if your refresh token is stolen somehow, then it will be valid for only for getting only one JWT, but getting only one JWT through sending requests from the same single domain. Because from different domain, HTTP only cookie will simply won't pass to the server. So it's safe from XSS, it's safe from cross-site CSRF, and it is good. So how do we persist sessions? Have a new session in the tab. We try silent refresh. If we fail, we redirect to login. If we succeed, we basically start countdown on a different tab. And I want to show you the code, as I kind of rushed through my slides. Before showing the code, I want to thank you for being in the space, and we'll jump from the space into our VS Code editor, and hope it won't break the immersion. So let's see what we will do when we have server-side rendering. Server-side rendering, we can have different problems, additional problems actually. We render our page, right? We get, let's say we re-render our page. We logged in, everything's good, token in memory. I re-render my page. What happens? When page is rendered on the server, what happens is refresh token endpoint will get a new JWT. It will be stored in memory on the server, right? And then everything will be rendered to the client with like working and with getting all the data from the GraphQL endpoint and all. But your refresh token will be wrong. So another click on the same tab will basically log you out. And this is sometimes frustrating in apps such as like, in general, in SSR. So let's look through the code and let's see what's actually happening here. And it's just like a really simple example. So we have our app, we have our index. We are in Next.js app, actually, right? How many of you are familiar with Next.js? Good. So the ones that are not familiar is a really good solution for server-side rendering apps. You should check this out. The idea is everything under pages is different routes, and I have here an index route and the login route, right? So if I look in my login route, I will have, with hostname, wait a second. I will have the login, right? So I want to fetch, can you see the font? Yeah, okay. I will increase a little bit. So we have the handle submit, and we have the fetch. So we get the username, we get the JWT token expiry, as I told you. If there are errors, we throw errors, and we set user data, right? And we re-log in some. We move to different route to our app.js. Now our app.js uses with our auth-sync higher order component that it comes from utils. With auth-sync is the component that does all the logic, and let's see what it's doing. With auth-sync, let me find it. Okay, here it is. So basically, in Next.js, get initial props will be executed on the server to get my initial props with context. And I call the auth function, passing the context, to basically get authenticated. Now, if I don't have in-memory token, then I set the token. If I have it, everything is fine. Now, all the magic happens in auth. So what do I have here? I get refresh token from cookie. Now you can say, wait a second, you said refresh token was HTTP only, right? So how am I supposed to get it from the cookie? So here I'm on the server, so I'm able to get the cookie as soon as I am on the same domain. As soon as my API login endpoint on the same domain. So I get the refresh token. If I don't have memory token, so basically what I do, I get the cookie and get the URL, right? And I fetch to, what my URL? To refresh token, right? So this is like silent refresh that is happening. Now it happens both on the client and on the server. And I told you the problem in SSR that you do like twice, you do refresh token twice. You do it on the server and do it on the client. So you need to update this refresh token when you render things on the client. So here I'm getting my refresh token, and this is what solves SSR. So you check if you're on the server, you set your refresh token to the updated one. Now this is a small trick that will fix all the like SSR thing because we will have the same token passing through. Now we'll still have two requests executed, one from the server, one from the client, but at least we will fix that and we won't have redirect to login. Now obviously there are lots of like trade-offs and lots of things that maybe not that clear from the talk, and or you need to like dig more into. So I try in this talk to show you different ways, and actually the suggested way to use JWTs and the most secure way to use JWTs. Now after the talk, I will tweet the blog post that I wrote that explains further with like more details, getting more into code. Because of time constraints, I don't have time to explain everything. So you'll have time to read this on your own. What I want to focus on though, that when you get another ticket, to get another login working, think twice, what about security? What about all the edge cases, like reloading SSR, like what about different tabs? Think about this twice and think how you can create your apps in the most secure way possible. Because unfortunately, security is the last thing in mind in lots of companies and lots of businesses. And I think it's fundamentally wrong because you just expose your business to hacker attacks, and you don't want that. So I was pretty fast running through the code. So that's all that I have for today. Thank you so much for being here, for listening to me. If you have questions, I'm open to answer. And presentation will be available online, so you can play around, walk through the it's WebGL with WebAssembly. It's available just to walk through, play around through. Don't go through walls so you fall into space. I told you it's not secure. And follow me on Twitter at Vladimir Novick. I will have more stuff in upcoming days on ReasonML, on GraphQL, and all of these technologies I work with. Thanks a lot.
This video recording was brought to you by Twilio. We allow you to integrate different means of communication such as video, chat, or SMS into your React applications. If you want to learn how you can send SMS directly from a React chat, check out this video on the right or go to our Twilio YouTube channel. And if you want to watch another React India talk, we picked one out just for you over here on the left. Thanks for watching.